Hi, this is Lauren Cheeke from Lornicopia. This is the second part of the video about the missing Anthony Cheeke. So, I'm turning the camera around, and I'm going to show you the family crest. This is Sir Thomas Cheeke of Pergo, Essex. He was the one that was married that had the children that I talked about in the previous video. This is his father, Henry Cheeke. This is from a triptych that's in a little chapel in England that the family patronized. And down here, you'll see the relationships of people on this triptych, like Robert Rich, First Earl, Lady Penelope Devereux, who, is an ancestor of mine that goes all the way back to Henry VIII. Well, a few generations from Henry VIII. So this is all within that time period of Elizabeth I, Henry VIII, Edward VI, Mary, and then a few generations later till we come to America. But what I want you to pay attention to is the three crescents that are red. They call that gul, which is from Latin for blood. And then they have the argent background, which is Latin for silver. And argent was represented as white or silver. They didn't usually paint silver because it was too expensive and it tarnished. But that was what it was supposed to represent. And now I'm going to show you a Cheeke descendant who married a Dyer descendant in a document. And this is significant because one of our first ancestors' wives in America was Senior Dyer, and she's probably and most likely a descendant of Jane Cheeke Dyer, who would have been a cousin. So you have cousins marrying cousins, which makes the tangled web even more thick. So here's one book that mentions Jane Cheeke Dyer. You can pause and see the name of the book and Google it and read this document. It's also in several other books. I've found her quite a few different places and in wills. This just happens to mention it. But this is showing the arms. And what it says is it says that she was married. Her name was Jane, daughter of, and actually in other documents that are clearer than this, it says Thomas Cheeke. We're not sure which Thomas it was. It could be Colonel Thomas, or it could be Sir Thomas Cheeke. Dyer, and then they show a explanation of what their coat of arms looked like. And like I told you a little bit earlier, it was like a copyright, and you had to pay to have it, and you would derive something from the previous one. And what it's saying is that the Dyer coat of arms was impaling argent, which is the silver in the background, and then three cinquefoils gul, red. So instead of having the three crescents, because people were alive that already had that, and she was not the heiress, she incorporated three cinquefoils. Cinquefoils are 5-leafed flowers, and you'll see them in lots of heraldry and everything. It's probably something that came from the Dyers. And they merged it together to create this new coat of arms that also connected them back to the family. So anyway, it tells you what his claim to fame was, her husband. But then I want to show you Anthony's descendant who marries Senior Dyer. And you can see that Senior Dyer is probably a descendant of the Cheeke family already, a cousin, and that her last name is Dyer, which would be an interesting explanation of why they consolidated, wealth or married who they knew or to help with the family. Jane Cheeke actually, Dyer, died in a state of poverty. So her brother and I think her father also supported her. And you'll find that in other documents relating to Jane Cheeke Dyer. This is the other book mentioning Jane Cheeke Dyer. And this is the will, I think, of the Dyer family. I'm just briefly looking over it. I'm pretty sure it was. And it tells how she was provided for. And you can Google this and actually read this document. You might help me be able to sort out who these people are. But you see that James Dyer, Jane Dyer, at the time period, her will, and I'm pretty sure Jane Dyer is most likely Jane Cheeke Dyer. And then see, it says he married Jane, daughter of Thomas Cheeke, and had issue Edward Dyer, James Dyer, John Dyer, George Dyer, Catherine Dyer, Anne Dyer, Ursula Dyer, and Elizabeth Dyer. And then it talks about Richard Cheeke of London, Richard was most likely one of her brothers that may not be mentioned in some of the genealogies, but we know that she is Thomas's daughter. I'm not sure which Thomas, but it's a Thomas in the Cheeke line, most likely related to Sir Henry Cheeke and the others. But it tells you how he doled out Providence, and then it says Tom Cheeke, brother of Richard Cheeke. So there's a Richard, a Thomas, and a Richard. So she has a brother named Thomas. And I'm not sure if this is Jane Dyer, who was from the generation of before, because I'm trying to do the math. You see what I'm saying? It's like 1619, or if she's like a grandchild. So I'm a little confused. But what is certain is that she's a Cheeke, and she is probably the ancestor of the Dyer that I'm going to show you in a moment. Let's see if there's anything else interesting. Yeah, I think that's all the mention of the Cheeks. And this is the website, the Cheeke family of Allegheny County, North Carolina. I'm pretty sure this is run by Moon. But anyway, what it says is that, it's giving you the little genealogy of the people. And she does a lot of great documentation here to tell you where they are. And she furnishes like wills and things of that sort. She took a lot of time to really copy all this down. But what's interesting is I think under John Cheeke Jr., it says that John Cheeke Jr. was married to Senor Dyer. And Senor Dyer is one of my ancestors. She's one of my grandmothers. So this is connecting Senor, or Sena, as they call her, back potentially to the family of Jane Cheeke Dyer. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, we'd have to do more research to actually connect the dots. But I'm feeling like this is probably why Senor Dyer, who sounds like a weird name and just pops out of the lineage of women that are married into the family, is most likely related to the Cheeke family. And you can look at this website too and check it out. But I'm thinking John Cheeke Jr. is the son of John Cheeke Sr. in this genealogy, and in most genealogies that I read. John Cheeke Sr. is usually listed as being the son of Anthony, I'm pretty sure. But like I said, Anthony is a little bit of a mystery because, he's there. He's in documentation. But they're not sure if they were cousins or brothers, which they could possibly be brothers. There's so many Johns and Thomases and everything else, so it could have been that John and Anthony actually had two separate families, but they come from the same family branch, or they were cousins of a close branch of the family of Cheeks. This is kind of interesting because there's a William Dyer who's a settler, but that shows up on Wikipedia. I don't know. I'm sure he's related, but cousin, father, not absolutely positive. But the interesting thing is I've read this article before, not directly related to my family, but I was reading about Puritans or something like that. And I'm pretty sure that his wife became a religious extremist and they ended up executing her. And let's see what community she was in. I think she was in the Quaker community, which my family were Quakers when they came here. Mary Dyer, the wife of William Dyer in Newton, Rhode Island, she was put to death at the town of Boston with the like cruel hand of the martyrs were in Queen Mary's time. So it probably means she was burned at the stake. Oh my. Okay, here's another book that has a mention of some Cheeks in it. It mentions an Anthony Cheeke and a John. I'm going to show that to you. But they say, now this is where I get confused. I'm going to come over here. This is the Sillyards. Again, I think I mentioned the Sillyards before. But this is more or less in the visitation a will or an account of who's alive at the time. You can Google this and read it, see if you can enlighten me. But the wording gets me confused. So it says, son John S., gentleman, lands of St. Sepulchre, London, which we mentioned earlier. His children, William S., blah, blah, blah. I think I already mentioned this. But what I was saying here is Humphrey Cheeke gentleman, eldest son of my daughter Isabel Cheeke. So Isabel must have been a Sillyard who married into the Cheeke family, but the wording confuses me. Was she a Cheeke who married a Sillyard or a Sillyard who married a Cheeke? But anyway, in this generation, which seems to be 1603, so it's pretty early on, they mention Anthony, Robert, and John, and other sons. I have mentioned this earlier in the thing, but I guess I just wanted to come back and make a point that there are so many Cheeks mentioned in here, and Anthony doesn't show up a lot in records, but I'm finding records of him or more than one Anthony in England. And I just wanted to share that with you so that maybe you can look this up, illuminate me. Maybe two heads are better than one. You know what I'm saying? So there you have it. Some pedigrees of the Visitation of Kent. And then here in this book, I'm just including this because these are other Cheeke people that may or may not be showing up in genealogies. It might help someone trace their genealogy in the Cheeke family branch. But this is Thomas Stokes, who married the daughter of, it looks like Thomas Cheeke of Molston, County Hants. Hants is, well, I'll have to think about that. It's not coming right to me. But it tells you that she had children with him, and it gives you the crest. So there was an Anne Cheeke, daughter of Thomas Cheeke of Molston and Hants. Okay, I'm going to stop at this point right here and do a little short third video.